Welcome to the Becoming babyREADY podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. If you give yourself permission to acknowledge that just deciding to start a family is in fact making the decision to embark upon the process, then you open yourself up to being ready to receive whatever the universe puts out there for you. Today I get to introduce you to Laine, and she does so many things and wears so many hats that really the only way for you to truly appreciate what it is that she does is to just listen to what she has to say. Welcome, everyone. I am extremely excited and honored today to have the opportunity to introduce you to Laine, and I'm going to ask that she tell us who she is and what she does. So welcome, Laine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share with you. My name is Laine Halpern Zisman. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a queer doula. I primarily am a doula who does family building support and fertility support. I do that through my own practice called Queer Conceptions, which you can find on Instagram. And I work with an organization called Perinatal Wellbeing Ontario that supports folks through mental health journeys at all stages of family building, whether you're trying to conceive or you're pregnant or postpartum. And I work with an organization called Birthmark as a doula as well. And Birthmark has a specific part of their organization geared towards LGBTQ folks called Seed and Sprout. So I run a support group with Seed and Sprout once a month and run some workshops with them as well. And on top of all of that, I'm also a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Victoria. And in that role, I'm doing research on sexual and reproductive health for LGBTQ people and increasing access and equity. So I try to be involved at different levels, at the individual level, providing care, and at the institutional or policy level, doing research to try to improve access and equity. And then I also am on a few advisory boards with fertility clinics so that I can help the clinics themselves support people in the community. Lots of things.
Wow. And what do you sleep just between 2 and 3 in the morning? Is that kind of how it goes?
Yeah, there's not a lot of sleep happening.
No, I would think not. So perhaps what you could do is talk about the work that you do, and if you can, I'd really love to hear more about the work you do with regard to fertility and conception, because I think that when we talk about baby shows, we often talk about that the conception's already happened. To be fair, the vast majority of baby shows are, well, in fact, I believe this is the first that is not a cisgendered, heteronormative focused baby show. But in our community, babies don't just happen. They are all intentionally created, and I fully respect that is also the way that it goes for some families in the cisgendered hetero world. However, in our world, that's virtually all of the families. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that a lot of baby shows would give much time or conversation to that part of the process. I want to hear about everything you do. I don't want to keep you for 2 hours though. So tell us, how does the work that you do specifically help the 2S LGBTQIA+ community grow their respective families and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to talk about, because that's what I'm most passionate about. And that's what most of my work revolves around. So I do work in other areas, but really that's what I want to do. That's what I want to help people with. And one of the things I talk with clients about is how the skills that you start to build during your family building journey are skills that are going to take you through your pregnancy and through your parenting, through all of your obstacles. Because as you said, it's such an intentional journey for so many people in this community. And even if it happens on the first try, let's say you're doing it at home and it happens right away, and I have lots of folks that happens with, even with that, there's still so much planning that has to go beforehand.
Sure.
So even in the fastest cases, it tends to be a little bit more challenging than in heterosexual and cisgender couples. So, or families. So one of the things that I think is important when we're starting to talk about family building is thinking about when it starts. Because for a lot of people, there's a lot of anxiety around feeling validated to say like, oh, I've started my journey. And the reason that is because sometimes it takes years until we have sperm and an egg, right? For so many people, there's a lot of things that happen before we even have the gametes or the uterus, right? It takes 3 things to make a baby. We need a uterus, we need sperm, and we need eggs. No matter, like, that's how humans are made. So whether you're adopting, whether you're using a surrogate, whether you're doing IUI or doing it at home, no matter what, you need those 3 things to make a human.
Yeah.
So the question is, how are you going to make them? How are you going to get those things? So for some people, getting those things can take years, and they don't feel like they can say, we're trying to build a family, because they haven't had that moment yet of conception. So my biggest, the thing that I'm a cheerleader about the most is saying that conception starts with a thought, right? When we think about conceiving of the baby, for me, that is the moment of conception, when we start to conceive of that family. Mm-hmm. So we can all give ourselves permission when we start to dream and imagine and plan to validate that as part of your journey. I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of anxiety around, when can I say that we started? So just give yourself permission. If you're watching this and you're thinking about building a family, you've started your journey, and giving yourself that permission, I think, can even like relieve some of the stress, so that it's going.
Goosebumps. It's so true, though. It's so true. And I know we don't say anything because we're worried that people are going to keep asking us, how are you doing? Has it happened yet? What's going on? Which is their issue, and it shouldn't be our issue. But you're right. I mean, you've given me goosebumps. It's just the idea that it's okay to acknowledge this is the process and this is our journey.
Yeah. And it's also like for yourself, like whether or not you share it with other people is your business, but just let yourself know that the reason you're feeling all of these feelings is because you have started, right? Because you are in this process, and it is a labor, right? It's hard. It's a lot of work. Just the thought of it just can bring up so much anxiety. So give yourself that validation. You have started, you're on the journey, whether or not you have those 3 things yet.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing for you to actually articulate for everybody, right? Are there things that you might look for working in the capacities that you do, not just one, but several, that your clients would argue make you better suited to work with the 2S LGBTQIA plus community than perhaps heterosexual professionals who work in a similar capacity?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. You need community. I think one of the things we talk about is like creating your team, right? Like who's in this process with you, who can support you. And that might include some people who are different genders or who are heterosexual or whatever. But I think having people guide you on this process, through this process, who understand, who have that either personal experience or just knowledge of the community, like, you know, like whether or not they've had kids, if they're in the community, they understand. So for example, for other people who are heterosexual, they might see a form that says like male partner, female partner, and be like, oh, you know what they mean, it's fine. But they don't understand that, like, that kind of the upset that causes, right? The emotional aggravation of having to continually cross something out and not have a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. It's important to have people around you who understand that that's not just a little thing. That's something that you deserve, for that not to exclude you. And that does have an emotional toll. When we talk about microaggressions, we're talking about things like that, right? These tiny little things that on their own, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, I crossed it out. I just put partner, or like, okay, they got my pronouns wrong this one time. Those little microaggressions are huge. It's not one time, that's massive. And that becomes a burden that we carry. So, and that can affect us and cause trauma. So having people surround you who can advocate for you, so you're not just doing that yourself, right? That's a lot of the work that we do, is to advocate for our community, to say, you can't do that. Like, actually, like, you need to apologize, or
Mhm.
tell your client, like telling you, like, it's okay to change doctors. This doctor is not a good fit for you. They're not respecting you. It might take a few extra months now for you to conceive, but it's worth it for your mental health, right? Like I say to my clients all the time, like, how important is it for you, for your child to be a Gemini, right? Like a few months, big picture isn't going to be that important. It feels really big at the moment, and those
Sure.
are important
When you're
feelings.
ready, you're ready. But
Yeah,
yes,
totally. But in the grand scheme of things, being with a clinic or a doctor or a donor that respects you, that feels like a good fit, those are lifelong commitments or lifelong impacts, at least.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And it's already, I was talking to somebody the other day and talking about just how people don't necessarily realize that we're outing ourselves all of the time, whether
Mhm.
we're sitting with our partner at a restaurant having dinner and not having two checks when we're asked, or every single place we go, going to a new doctor, and who's my emergency
Mm.
contact, and that's my wife. And so
Yeah.
we're constantly, so as you say, those microaggressions, they seem small at the time, but they build, and they really sit in our heart. So yeah, to have a
And
team member working with you who is also a community member.
definitely. And I think also this is one of the places where the skills you have now are going to translate later on, because right now you're learning to have a team to advocate for you. You're learning how to advocate for yourself or how to ask for help when you need it. And you're going to create a human in this process, right? And they're going to need you to advocate for them, because they're going to have parents who aren't like other parents. So the skills you learn now to help yourself, that's going to help your family. So
Sure.
even if you're like, I can handle it, I'm strong, like, we're here to tell you that you deserve better. You don't have to put up with it. And that you doing this now is helping your kid in the future. Like that's
Sure.
making an impact.
Absolutely. 100%. Are there any pearls of wisdom that you've learned over the years that your clients are especially lucky to learn from you that they probably wouldn't learn from anybody else?
Yeah. So I think I've mentioned a few. One of my big ones is expect the unexpected. That especially in this journey, different from cis and hetero folks, like really you think everything is going as planned, and then like last minute, just expect the unexpected. I think that's a really big one
Yeah.
that I say a lot. And I think the other one is the pearl of wisdom is that there's no one way to make a baby, right?
Right.
You can make a baby in so many ways. And the way that you think that you're going to make a baby might not be the way you end up making a baby.
Yes.
So we talk a lot, and maybe other people are talking about this in the baby show, about birth preferences and labor preferences. And we put in a lot of time into thinking about what we prefer for labor, right? Like, are we planning on having a water birth? Are we planning on having an epidural? Those kinds of things we talk about, but we don't always have an intentional time to sit down and have our fertility or family building preferences. So my pearl of wisdom is to give yourself that time to go through the different preferences and say, okay, this is the starting place I want. This is where I want to start. I want to start with the big questions you have are what donor, if you need a donor, what donor are you going to use? If you need a clinic, what clinic are you going to use? Or if you want to start at a clinic, and if you are, what method do you want to start with? All three of those things are starting places, and they might end up somewhere different than you
Sure.
imagine. But you want to figure out what are those three things? What are your preferences? And then you want to think about, what do I want to do if those preferences can't be met? And for a lot of people, having that in mind in advance, then when you're having a really stressful situation, you already know, okay, these are the steps I'm going to take. Those steps might be things like, I'm going to take a month break and not make any rash decisions. Those steps might be, I'm going to do whatever my doctor suggests, or I might find a second opinion, right? There's lots of things we could choose to do, but make that decision now of
Mhm.
what can I do if my preferences can't be met?
Right.
And part of that fertility and family building preference sheet is also thinking about who do you want on your team? Like, who do you want for support? Who's there for you? And how do you cope? Think about your daily life now. How do you cope with stressful situations? What
Mm.
are the best coping strategies that you have? And then you have a toolkit already, because this is going to get stressful, right? So
Mm.
what are the things, I have breathing exercises that work really well, or I respond really well to affirmations, or I like boxing. Like, so go to a boxing gym and punch things.
Yeah, yeah. It's true. And I say that when I'm talking to people about preparing for birth too, and ask your partner, if you have one,
Yeah.
how they see you respond to stress. Because how I think I respond to stress is much more calmly than my wife would say, because I see myself when I'm getting to the stress-free spot, but not the getting to it. How do I get myself to it?
Right.
So sometimes our partners can see it in a way that we just can't truthfully see for ourselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think partners is actually a really good thing to bring up. If you're a solo parent, thinking about what kind of support system you want, if you have a partner or partners, thinking about having everyone involved in all of these conversations, so
Sure.
that if you have an idea of what your first preference is and what you want to do to change, does that match up with theirs? Because if they have something totally different, you don't really want to be having that discussion for the first time when you're in the thick of it. You want
Right.
to have that in advance so that you're prepared. Like, okay, I want to respect my partner. I want my partner to respect me. So how do we have those strategies come together?
Yeah, that's very, very true. That's very, very true. So I believe you said you're a parent yourself, and without bias, because you're here and I've asked you to be here, so you must see some validity in the process that we are on together. But do you personally believe that a show like this would have been advantageous to you or helpful to you when you were going through your own journey? And what would you have wanted to see included? Who would you wanted to speak to? What are the things that I can learn from you about making sure that this show is as robust as possible?
Yeah. So I'll say that when I was, for me and my wife, when we were first trying to conceive, I was so lost. I was like, where do I go? And I think it's a very common experience. Like,
Sure.
what do you do? Like, my doctor referred me to a clinic. It was an awful first consultation. We felt like it was just like our first experience with homophobia. And I don't think that clinic was intentionally homophobic, but the amount of ignorance that was present and the amount of forms that didn't make space for us, it felt like our first real experience with like explicit homophobia. And I didn't know where to go. So the kind of person that I am, I decided that I would become certified as a fertility doula.
There you go.
And through that process, I was able to learn a lot and ask a lot of the questions. So definitely this kind of show would make a huge impact, because what people often need is somewhere to go to ask the questions, right? To find the answers. Where can you turn to? What can you watch, right? And there's so many like YouTube videos of like, here's how we got pregnant, which is great. I think those are like very useful for people to watch. But how one person got pregnant might work for you, but it might not, because everyone is different. So having people come together who have professional backgrounds and have experience beyond a single isolated instance, that can really provide a good foundation for you to start knowing what to ask, because a lot of people don't even know what questions to ask.
Sure.
So I think that this is like an amazing opportunity to figure out what questions you want to ask and to start to ask them. And that will take you along the way to many different avenues.
Yeah.
I think recognizing like what resources are present is a huge advantage, so that you don't feel alone. A lot of people feel alone in this, and having a community is so important, particularly for people who are outside of an urban city center. I'm in Toronto. I think we probably have a lot more resources
Sure.
than folks who are in other places. But Zoom now allows us to be
Right.
anywhere, right? So
Yes.
my support group that I run through Seed and Sprout, it's on Zoom. And I think that's great, because we have a lot of folks coming from all over the GTA and Ontario, and people learn all kinds of things from that experience. For example, like I said, like knowing that you can change doctors. Lots of people don't know that's even an option, right? Like you can move to a different clinic or move to a different doctor within your clinic. Like that actually can be really liberating, to give yourself some power back and empower you to make choices about your body and your family.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Oh, is there anything we haven't covered? I feel like I could talk to you for hours and still just sort of just scratch the surface. But is there anything that you really wanted to make sure that you presented to the listeners, so that they had the opportunity to learn about it from you, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think just like the importance of finding community is really integral to this journey, because it's going to help you feel supported. It's going to help you answer the questions you don't know that you have yet, and it's going to help you throughout your process, like as you get pregnant and when you give birth and postpartum. So finding people that you feel supported by, finding people who are going through similar experiences, and knowing that they exist, right? Like you
Yes.
aren't alone, and you can always reach out to me if you feel alone. Find me on Instagram and send me a message. All of my consults right now are free of charge, so you are not charged to talk to me or ask me questions. If you have questions about your journey, send me a message. That is 100% what I'm here for. Seed and Sprout also offers free of cost services. So through Birthmark, if you need a doula and you can't afford one, if you need access to services and you can't afford them, that's the kind of people that Seed and Sprout helps. So all the services with me are free. And then if you need a doula and can't afford one, it's definitely the place to go.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. Remind us again. I know you told us a little bit at the beginning, but I think everybody was going, oh my gosh, she does this, she does this. Where can people find you?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Queer Conceptions. That's the name of the Instagram. I'm also on the Perinatal Wellbeing Ontario website. You can contact me through there, or through the Birthmark website, and lots of places.
Lots of places. You're everywhere. You truly are. It has been refreshing and inspirational to have the chance to talk with you today. And I am absolutely convinced that everyone who watches is going to feel that much more empowered but just by the way that you speak about the process and the journey, and inflated, because it can be something that can feel daunting and frightening and overwhelming. And just hearing a little bit about the recommendations you make and the importance and the value of honoring themselves is going to do a lot to provide them with courage and strength and support. So thank you very, very much for being a part of this today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, and good luck, everybody. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.